Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Carter, Head of Transport at KTN, and welcome you to the second monthly webinar in the Future Flight Friday series. So the aim of these webinar series is to showcase the diversity of expertise to enable the development of new collaborations. The Future Flight Challenge requires the inclusion of a diversity of innovators not traditionally associated with aviation to deliver on the ambitions of the challenge. And at KTM, we operate across many sectors and technologies, from the creative industries to agriculture, to health, to space, to transport, and lots in between. So we are expertise. So today's webinar takes a snapshot of what the future of air mobility could potentially look like for the delivery of people, goods and services. We have three speakers lined up today to demonstrate how they are shaping the future of mobility. So in recognition of the fact that it's actually the Farnborough Air Show this week, even though it's unfortunately online, but it's proven to be quite interesting, and some successful and interesting presentations this week. So we're very pleased to be part of the agenda also. For those of you that are not familiar with Future Flight Challenge, we're actually going to start with an overview of the challenge from Carissa Khan, who's Innovation Lead at Innovate UK. Before we move on to our next speaker. If you do have any questions for any of our speakers today, can you please put them in the chat function? My colleague Hannah is looking after you today, and we will pose those questions to the appropriate person in the Q&A session. It would be most helpful if you could indicate who your question is actually for, and it'll certainly help me frame that question for you. So if we start off the session, I'm just going to hand over to Carissa Khan from Innovate UK.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a pleasure to talk about one of the most exciting topics in aviation, flight. Future flight, to rush a child to a hospital in an emergency without traffic, to drones that can deliver medical supplies to the housebound during a crisis, or electric regional aircraft that can connect us faster to our loved ones. Future flight will revolutionize how we connect people, deliver goods, and provide services. It will increase connectivity and accessibility within urban and rural areas and across regions. And by fast-tracking the adoption of electric and autonomous capabilities for air mobility, future flight will inspire a generation of greener aviation. We are on the cusp of the third revolution in aviation. The first being getting us airborne with the Wright brothers. The second being the advent of the jet age to enable intercontinental flight. And now the third, where new classes of air vehicles with novel technologies are being introduced to the airspace, where drones, piloted or autonomous advanced air mobility vehicles and aircraft will operate in concert with each other, bringing flexibility to transport. However, the current aviation system isn't fit for purpose to enable this. This is where the Future Flight Challenge can put the UK at the forefront of this revolution by developing and demonstrating a novel aviation system that can integrate the safe and efficient operation of these new classes of air vehicles. So we are on a mission to demonstrate capabilities that system that is not scalable and unable to cope with increased volume. No clear technology, regulatory, or operational pathways to take us from piloted to remotely piloted to fully autonomous operation, and public acceptance of these new transformative innovations. So how do we tackle these challenges? We do this with a collaborative program that brings together the best thinkers, the best innovators, policymakers, city planners, regulators, radical and disruptive technology, new business models, game changers, with expertise from across a wide spectrum of diverse sectors. The program has 3 phases. Phase 1, which was completed earlier this year. This was a discovery phase to engage with customers and new entrants to develop the concept and start building a future flight community with stakeholders from diverse fields. Phase 2, which we are currently in. This is the development phase where we are investing in consortia, seeking to execute early research and development into potential demonstrations. And then phase 3, where we will have real demonstrations showcasing a novel aviation system involving multiple air vehicle types. And this is our timeline of the phases, with the development phase from 2020 to 2022, and the demonstration phase from 2022 to 2024. Our delivery plan is bold. Future Flight will inject much needed new life into aviation, increasing employment. It will develop world-leading products and services in clean aviation, and it will catalyze investment in the UK as the UK positions itself as a world leader, exploiting these new products and markets in aviation worth over $675 billion to 2050. Our approach is different. We are focusing on the need to commercialize operations of aircraft still in development. We are not waiting for the aircraft to be ready. We are ensuring we have an aviation system that is ready for the aircraft and is fit for purpose. And we are thinking about the sector as a whole and engaging beyond aviation to put the use case front and center. Future Flight is leveraging investments the government has made in artificial intelligence, battery technology, and digital capabilities, all of which are key to our challenge. It is ensuring the UK is equipped to benefit from the servitization of transportation service as they accelerate. Future Flight is a game changer in the integration of systems enabling airports, aircraft, and airspace to operate safely and efficiently for future autonomous and electric flight that can transform our lives. Thank you, Michelle.
That's great. Thank you, Carissa. Okay, so we've got 3 speakers coming up, or 4. So we've actually got a bit of a double act at Blue Bear Systems. So we'll start with Blue Bear Systems research and then go on to Jaunt Air Mobility and then finish off with drone technologies. So I'm just going to hand over to, I think, Anmol to start with. To present on behalf of Blue Bear Research Systems.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anmol Manohar. I'm a technical lead at Blue Bear Systems Research, and I'm excited today to talk to you about BV loss operations alongside my colleague Gavin Gowdy, who's an operations director at Blue Bear Systems Research. So Gavin did have a few technical issues to join this presentation. So
I'm back now, Emil.
Sure. So I'll very happily hand over to Gavin. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much. Sorry about that. Gremlins as usual. Thanks, Anmol. As Anmol pointed out, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the work that we do, in particular how we're doing BV loss operations, but touching on a bit of swarming. Anmol is involved in some UAM aspects of what we do at Blue Bear. I'm Gavin Gowdy. I'm the operations director at Blue Bear. Just click the slides on. We are 21 years old. We're in the field of R&D, particularly in unmanned and automated systems, typically looking at next-gen technologies, 5 to 10-year horizons. We're regularly conducting EV loss and BV loss activities, including multi-vehicle or swarming technologies. We're sort of seen, or we are badged up as a mini prime. We're about 50 people, but we work with industry, academia, government, MOD, and others internationally as well. Typically, we are using smaller, sort of sub 20 kilogram platforms, examples of which are shown on the screen now, to conduct our testing activities. On the top left, we've got our Black Start fixed wing system. It's an electrically powered UAV that can fly for about an hour and a half, and it can carry about 1 kilograms worth of payload. On the right, you can see a fleet of our Cobra unmanned systems, very long endurance systems, several hours electrically powered, and they can carry up to about 2 kilograms of payload. On the bottom right, that's what we call Red Kite. That's a petrol-engined 6-hour plus endurance system that can carry significant payloads. And on the left, something a little bit different, a rocket-driven coaxial helicopter system that we were involved with in development of in 2010 to 2015. So just a flavour of what we get up to. We're currently engaged in a swarming program about to deploy another trial, which will see up to 20 assets, maybe even more assets than that, deployed before the end of this year. And we're responsible for the command and control and the mission management of all those systems. And it's not just our systems, other platforms from other providers as well. So a little bit about the capabilities from our EV-LOS and BV-LOS perspective. We operate at Twinwoods, which is about a kilometre from our office, and that's overall about 5 kilometres northwest of Bedford near Oakley. We're about 16 kilometres from Cranfield, 20 kilometres from Sirewell in Class G airspace. We have this 1,000-foot AGL 3-kilometre radius NOTAM that we use to do our operations. It's essential for our business. It's not a danger. It's not a temporary danger. We are still subject to having to deconflict from other aircraft. It does prove to be a very popular landmark. It's on the site of an old airfield. It's next to the old Defence Research Association wind tunnel site as well. So we do frequently find that we have visitors that come to see what we're up to. This is an example of a flight we were doing a couple of years ago, and our friends from Washington are always coming through using our location as a VRP. But what it really does is it highlights the importance of interaction and interoperability between not just the small platforms, but the large unmanned platforms, be they military, be they civilian. And that's really a core focus of what we're doing now with our activities in BV-LOS, including our work on the National Beyond Visual Line of Sight Experimentation Centre, which I'll come on to in a minute. So I think what's important for us is that we can understand interoperability challenges. So as a company, we have familiarity and experience with operations in both controlled and uncontrolled airspace, but I think the uncontrolled airspace is the key here. We understand the challenges that are faced and the concerns held by all stakeholders. It's not just about the unmanned market, it's about GA, it's about civil, it's about military. And how we comply with the sort of 3 golden rules of BV-LOS, and that's where are you, how do you know you're there, and ensuring that we can detect and avoid all others, not just people who might be equipped with specific equipment. And what we do know about that is segregation is not the answer. Segregation helps matters at the moment, but it's not going to be the solution. Technology is the solution. Segregation is just one step on the way to that. Just moving forward onto the next slide, it might not come through very clearly, but this is an example of different types of problems that were faced and challenges. This is directly above our site on a summer's day 2 years ago during a national gliding competition. In the space of about 10 minutes, there are something like 20 to 25 gliders coming through perfectly legitimately through the area that we're operating in. And of course, gliding is a very dynamic sport. They are not just transiting through them. You can see on the screen there that people are stopping, thermaling, drifting back through the area that we're working in. These gliders are all FLARM equipped. Some are transponder equipped, but this data is from FLARM. So that's an example of interoperability where there's no standardized method or no mandated standardized method yet of being able to detect and avoid other aircraft. So how do we take systems like that and how do we feed them into, in the first instance, our system? We can receive this, we can avoid based on our technologies, but it's not ubiquitous and it's not universal. So one thing that does tell us that there's an accepted principle that electronic conspicuity devices are likely to have a role to play in future integration of manned and unmanned aviation. At this time, there's little evidence to show how effective they could be ensuring that the risk of collision is mitigated, but there's certainly an important point in that. Another accepted principle is that a unified traffic management approach should be considered in how manned and unmanned assets can coexist. But we have to recognize that there's a significant majority of stakeholders that don't wish to be managed to maintain the freedoms that they currently enjoy. You know, specifically talking about general aviation, but also some drone operators as well. And another accepted principle is that a focus on a single approach or focus is unlikely to provide a satisfactory long-term solution. So support of ground infrastructure can and should be used and needs to be used to aid the unlocking and enabling the data sharing between stakeholders. We're seeing that already on our work under the MBEC about what technologies we will need to put in place, and the CA have put forward their cap about this as well, saying that they believe that some sort of ground-based radar system is going to be quite important to the interoperability and beyond vision line of sight aspects of drones and manned systems. Just a small bit on the NBEC. It is a consortium comprising at the moment of Blue Bear, Cranfield, Thales, and Vodafone. It's enabling developers of electronic conspicuity, surveillance, and UAS systems to test in a real-world environment without having to go to segregated airspace or create segregated airspace. It will provide a recognized air picture to support both manned and unmanned airspace cooperation. And it will aid the development of technologies that ultimately will facilitate the integration of manned and unmanned assets. And that's the key thing here. It is technology which will do that ultimately. And NBEC is facilitating that development. Quick overview of what it looks like. Blue Bear are on the top right here in our 3-kilometer NOTAM. We are effectively just under the ILS Cranfield, and it's a 16-kilometer run into the ATZ. So the flights that we will begin to are developing and continue to develop this year will join up the two facilities. And we're working very closely with the Civil Aviation Sandbox team to get the safety case in place for this and to get all the measures in place, including technologies. But ultimately, this is what we're developing. It's a form of data exchange and unmanned traffic management for general aviation and drone systems to create a unified traffic management system so that the full picture can be presented to all users of the sky, and that beyond visual line of sight technologies and beyond visual line of sight process and procedure and activities can continue without the need for segregation. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much, Gavin and Mol, for that presentation. It was very interesting. It's really good to hear about your activities around BV loss and creating that ecosystem and moving towards unsegregated airspace. So next we've got Alan Thomas, and he's going to present on Jaunt Air Mobility. So over to you when you're ready, Alan.
Thank you very much, and thanks for this opportunity to introduce the company, Jaunt Air Mobility, and the product, the launch product, the Jaunt Journey. We were formed April last year, so not so long ago, to bring to market the intellectual property that we call the reduced rotor operating speed aircraft, or slow rotor aircraft, which has been developed over several decades by Carter Aviation. And I think a sign of the impact that we hope to have is that just 3 months after we launched the company, we were awarded one of the vehicle partners to Uber Elevate. And I recently joined Jaunt to be their UK and Europe presence, and obviously prepare us for go-to-market, but also to contribute to some of the things Carissa was talking about of the collaboration to move the entire ecosystem down its critical path, not just wait until vehicles are up and operating. So this is our Jaunt Journey vehicle. I guess it looks like what it's meant to be, which is a combination of the best of fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters. We are extremely confident. Uber Elevate, in order to sort of crystallize this market, have been very focused on what the mission should be for an air taxi, and we're entirely confident that we will meet or exceed all of the requirements of that market. I'll just talk very briefly about a couple of the innovations. The slow rotor, I'm sure many of you know the key drawbacks of helicopters. They're great in the vertical mode, but in the cruise mode, they're both noisy and inefficient. and the whole point of being able to slow down the rotor is to reduce the drag and to reduce the noise generation. Also, those of you familiar with helicopters will know, in order to go from the vertical to the horizontal mode, they have to drop the nose and change the vector of the thrust in order to get some forward movement, which can be a little difficult for passengers, and it can also lead to issues about exactly how you load the vehicle. So we have what we call the level fly technology, which tilts the main pylon to create the same effect of the transition rather than dropping the nose. And there's a whole bunch of other innovation in our vehicle. Again, because of our heritage, we estimate that 80% of the technology that will be in the production vehicle has already been demonstrated with 350 flying hours and over 1,000 landings and takeoffs. So just to emphasize, although we as a company are quite new, we have a very rich heritage which we're bringing to the market. I'll just also highlight the key kind of range and payload stuff there. So our cruise speed, 175 miles an hour, 5 people, pilot plus 4, until such time as we can become autonomous, and a range of approximately 80 miles. And I want to stress that that is with existing battery technology and some conservative assumptions about margins, safety margins, etc. So we'll talk in a little bit about safety, but I think I've already emphasized that we think we offer some performance advantages, certainly over existing helicopters. 63% lower noise because there's no tail rotor, because there's electric propulsion, but largely because of this slow rotor. And the certification point, I think everybody in this industry understands that vehicle certification is stringent and very necessary. So we are, according to the FAA Part 29 rules, we are a gyrodyne, and therefore we have, relative to many of our competitors, quite a lot of certainty, not complete certainty, but quite a lot of certainty about how we will be certified, and therefore kind of the confidence limits on how long it will take and how much it will cost, we feel we have a much stronger grounding than the vehicles that, for example, will have to be certified under the new regulations being developed by EASA. So the point about safety, which is a very active debate in the industry, obviously, and a very important imperative to getting consumer acceptance, just to talk about our differentiated safety features. So were there to be a complete power loss at altitude, there is enough inertia in our main rotor that it will continue to rotate. And in rotating, it will continue to operate. I like to think about it as similar to a sycamore seat. So it will continue to descend in a controlled manner, even in the event of a complete power loss. So one way of thinking about that is it is a built-in parachute. The main rotor is the parachute. And the control system can be used to direct the vehicle as it's coming down in that controlled manner. And what that equates to is that if you lose power at 1,000 feet of altitude, you have 5 square miles as the pilot to choose from in your landing position, despite having completely lost power. And I think that's really important to the industry, that we can all provide reassurance on these safety matters when we're flying over urban areas or even rural areas. So this is our timeline. On the left-hand side here, we are currently refurbishing a demonstrator. It won't be all electric, but one of the things I wanted to put out to the community is that we will have a working vehicle that will demonstrate many, if not all, of the benefits of our aircraft around the turn of the year. And we want to make that available to the industry in order to help improve customer acceptance and to demonstrate multi-aspects of ecosystems as and where achievable. We're already engaged with prospective operating partners in North America and in mainland Europe, and we want to throw out to the industry the opportunity for us to position the vehicle in the UK for a period of time, probably in 2021. Our full electrically powered demonstrator, which is entirely representative of the launch vehicle, will be in the air in 2023. As I've already said, we intend to begin certification under existing FAA regulations in 2023 and finish it in 2026. We also have a view on scaling, so we aren't just focused on the next milestone. We're focused right through the process of being able to produce at scale. And we have announced partnerships with various tier 1 suppliers, including BAE Systems and Triumph, the aerostructures company. So we believe along our ecosystem that we have the ability to scale up as the market requires it very rapidly from 2025 onwards. And who knows, but our stake in the ground for going fully autonomous is 2030. And so just to emphasize our last point, which is that we really appreciate that this industry will really only achieve its potential, and to echo Carissa's points earlier, we all have to be able to contribute to the wider agenda. Ultimately, some of us may be direct competitors, but absolutely at this stage, we are all working together to achieve the comprehensive ecosystem that's described here. And we are working with some of our partners, both vehicle partners and partners on the ground infrastructure, to provide some expertise, some guidance, some thought partnership to people across the ecosystem and people representing cities and regions who want to draw their own map to the future. Because it's in our enlightened self-interest that we enable the parallel creation of the infrastructure with our core activity, which is actually to bring the vehicle to market. So we invite anybody who wants to know more and who wants to look at ways of cooperating with us to further that wider goal. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much, Alan. And a really, that's a useful invitation to the UK community to engage with Jaunt Air Mobility. And if you want to be connected with any of the speakers, please do drop us an email. There's some contact details at the end, which we'll provide. So feel free to connect with us. So we're doing really well for time at the moment, so thank you to the speakers for keeping to time thus far. And if you've got any questions for any of our speakers, just a reminder to pop it into the chat function and we'll pose those questions during the Q&A after Richard's presentation. So on that note, I'm just going to hand over to Richard Stark, who's from Drone Technologies. When you're ready, Richard.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me, and thank you very much for inviting us to speak today. We're a relatively young company. We're about a year old, but we are 4 drone pilots who've come together to exploit the opportunities, I think, that are evident in the market. So although we're a young company, we come with a fair degree of experience. Just hopefully there. Next one. Here we go. Yeah, so our founding principles, basically the reason why we've come together, is that we've seen our backgrounds. We've seen the VLOS has kind of changed many industries, how they operate, filming and survey and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and we see that BVLOS, as I'm sure most of you listening in today will know, is the kind of next revolution. And that actually outside of the UK there are I think there's other countries who are ahead of us. I think there's commercial operations that are ahead of us, and that if we're in the UK and why can't we be part of that and lead the field as well? We see it as to get going, to get started. We see the technology as being there. We think most of it is there. And again, the hurdles are regulatory rather than technical in many ways. And the key, I think, is to, or we think, is to prioritise doing something and starting to build that body of evidence that's required to support the regulatory change. You know, and that's something that the whole industry has to do. It's not something we can do on our own, obviously. And there's so many people out there that are doing that just now. And the key, we think, is to kind of demonstrate the market rather than the drones. And then by doing that, or the way to do that is to seek near-term commercial use cases, yeah, in inherently safer environments, yeah, that allows you to build that body of evidence. So this is our team. We're a kind of a diverse group. I think we've got about 100 years of experience amongst the 4 founding members. Our sort of backgrounds come from subsea ROVs, offshore energy, sports marketing, and we also have an element now from Australia, which is mining, defence, and that kind of idea. So we come not just with a kind of significant amount of experience, but we have a broad network of people around about the world who we're hoping to build into an organisation as we move forward. So this is kind of what we do, and we have this broad range of expertise, I suppose, from a range of industries, which makes us ideal for consulting. We have a sound knowledge of the drone industry and drones, and how we then apply these to commercial use cases across a range of industries. We have a good degree of project management. We can then take those ideas and build projects. But to do that, we need equipment and partners, some of which we have ourselves, and some of which we are looking for and in negotiation with. And you can see the things in green I've highlighted there are things that we think we have, and the things in blue are things that we are looking for, or that we are working towards in conversations. So the real reason, I think the main reason I'm here today is that we've got an application into the Future of Flight challenge, and it's to build a thing called Drone Port Montrose. So for you, those of you who don't know, Montrose is halfway between Dundee and Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland, right on the coast. And it was also the first UK military aerodrome in the country, obviously. Started in 1913. And our intent is that this year will become Scotland's first drone port. So a bit of history, I suppose. And the reasons why we believe that Angus is a great place for us to pursue this project is a kind of, we call it the triad of opportunity. Yeah, we have a relatively safe trials area. Okay, we're one of the most low density populations in the UK, and we've got relatively quiet airspace. We have a whole lot of commercial use cases that are ready to go. There's some of the largest wind farm developments in the world are getting put in offshore in the next 5 years. We've got oil and gas platforms 150 kilometres out to sea, and a thriving marine industry just off the coast. And you go on land, and we have one of Scotland's best sort of agricultural areas, and a whole lot of rural public service problems that need to be solved. We're not really a technology development project. We're facilitating it, and as part of that, we're funded in a joint partnership or joint venture with Angus Council as part of the economic development programme to build a kind of centre of excellence for drone technology across the UK, to make us a hub, just like the one we've just heard down in Cranfield, or the one that's in Wales, something like that, but up in Scotland. But with our work with the council, we obviously have a robust and a well-established stakeholder engagement route that goes straight, that includes elected representatives as well as the public. But then also we're looking to the ability to develop UAVs, and we have very nearby 4 universities, Dundee and Aberdeen, and obviously all the expertise that comes out of the offshore industry, which Aberdeen is very much at the forefront of, including things like automation and all that kind of stuff. So this is the kind of programme, if you like. Effectively, the first phase we're ongoing just now. We've done the stakeholder engagement for establishing a area of temporary airspace offshore Montrose, and that will be where we have a site which to locate the initial drone port. We do once we've proven our business case, once we have proven we can operate safely, we tend to expand that, covering the whole of Angus, or at least somewhere between a little bit of Angus and the whole lot of Angus, and we'll develop the design of that with the Angus business community, using the council, and through people who come and liaise with us over the first 6 months of phase 1. And then, having done this and made what we hope is a world-class training facility or training air trials area, we then aim to build a centre of excellence. So, as part of the economic development plan for Angus that we're part of, it includes things like agri-tech, artificial intelligence, data management, all sorts of stuff that are linked into drones. And we aim to kind of bring that all together into our centre of excellence, where we have kind of cross-sector, cross-discipline building of expertise. What does it look like? This is the first phase. Effectively, it's a 12 nautical mile semicircle coming out of Montrose over the North Sea, with a number of drone corridors. There won't be 3 of them. I think there'll be 1, with drone corridors going out to where the big wind farms are going to get installed, allowing people to come and trial again with people who are doing stuff just now, and commercially viable use cases waiting to be completed. And that's a 6-month temporary program, allowing us to access along the top there. There's three areas there. So the offshore vessel anchorages off the coast of Montrose, the wind farms, and then the oil and gas platforms. And then once we've completed our 6-month trial period, the intent is to build expand the area either over time or iteratively as we go along, to include a number of drone corridors and trials areas that can all be linked up, so that we have a range of scenarios, all based upon like sort of business provided use cases. So that's the general idea. We're 6 months in, I suppose, to the phase 1, aiming to have drones in the air this year, hopefully, and then the second phase follows on from that. So in summary, the BVLOS revolution, I'm sure everyone knows, is imminent. Early commercialization will facilitate the body of evidence and regulatory change. As drone technologies, we want to be part of it. We've got a wide variety of experience, and we aim to find ourselves a niche within that. And as Drone Port Montrose, our first major project, but a joint venture, a partnership, how we wish to go forward between us and the public sector, that I think that we will help facilitate especially the stakeholder engagement part, that is the kind of major challenge of drones expanding their remit across the industries. And so that's myself.
That's great. Thank you, Richard. And just to offer a bit of clarity on your presentation, and I guess it's kind of an invitation for people to work with you and perhaps consider the Montrose, the drone port at Montrose as a sort of an open access to sort of develop these use cases for drones in that area.
I mean, we are. There's a lot more to the world of drones than we know about. We have effectively we are aiming to build a county scale integrated system where UAVs can be used, and we can do that all ourselves. We're looking for people to come and work with us, come and trial their technologies, both drones, but the infrastructure that goes alongside it, and anything else, the regulatory changes and procedures and whatever else. So yeah, we're looking for people to get in touch. I think our email address is on the bottom there of the slide. You'll share them. So we're looking for everyone to come and help us.
Great, thank you, Richard. Again, if you've got some questions for our speakers, please do put them in the chat box. And the CA have just asked me just to pop up this slide for you and just remind you about this call for insight. They've extended the deadline to the 14th of August, so they just wanted me to communicate that to you. So you've got an opportunity to feed into that. So this is essentially the CAA want to engage with the wider future air mobility ecosystem to sort of help review their comprehensive risk landscape. As it says there, to support the benefits of new mobility solutions for air passengers. So looking at all the hazards, risks, safety and social mitigations. So if you would like to contribute to that call for insight, the deadline's the 14th of August. These slides will be circulated. If you registered through our system, they'll be circulated to you, so you can get that link there. If you would like contact details for a specific person, I do have those. So again, when we show up the contact details at the end, feel free to drop me an email and we can send you those contact details if you want to have a conversation with CA around this. And they've also a reminder about their sandbox. So this is to engage with the CAA innovation team, and there's some links there for you as well. That's great. So now we will move on to the Q&A session. So in terms of questions, we've got, I'm not too sure who this is for, so feel free to answer this one. Take yourself off mute and answer it. But what is the fail-safe for drones going beyond the ceiling limit? Who would like to pick that up?
I'm not entirely sure. Is that you're talking about the kind of vertical? Well, you don't know, I suppose, because it's not your.
That's all I've got.
Yeah. I mean, for us, I mean, if you want, from our perspective, I mean, we are. There's everything that we're doing is around an operational safety case, and so there isn't really a fail-safe. It's all risk-based, and so it's. You build your plan and as to how you think you're going to run your trials, and then there's an operational safety case that goes along with all of that, and that is based either, from our perspective, around what we do if should that not work, and if it's from the technology's perspective, it would be the same.
Okay.
I can add on a vertical limit that we operate inside. So, off-the-shelf drones have geofencing installed, so they have geographical limitations that they will not be allowed to get into. Our systems, for example, have range limits that are defaulted, so we can't go beyond those limits. If it's in a beyond visual line of sight aspect, then the ceilings will change or the ranges will change depending on what you're doing. So there are fail-safes in terms of what Richard mentioned there, that operational based risk safety case at the moment, it's all based on what your safety case is. In the future, when it's effectively unhindered beyond visual line of sight operations, the fail safe for the drones and the assured nature of that must be certified. So that is work in progress, and it really depends on the operation that's being conducted.
Great, thank you. So a question for Alan. What is the safety requirements for the battery packs in your aircraft? And do you have any measures to prevent and mitigate battery thermal runaway?
Okay, well, just to try to unpack this, when I talked before about regulation, I said that we qualify under the FAA Part 29 rules. Of course, battery power and electric propulsion is kind of new territory. So when we talk about the requirements, that's dialogue with the regulators as they kind of refine what it is they need. When you come into specific operating issues, then it is a multi-factor issue to do with what the operating regime is going to be, how much time you have to recharge the battery set, and a whole bunch of other kind of operating parameters. But there is a very clear area of research and interrogation that we're going through together with our partners at BAE Systems. And we do have room in our specification for cooling should that be required.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, if you've got some questions, please put them in the chat function for our speakers. We've just got a few minutes remaining on this session. So we've got a question for either Gavin or Richard. Are you engaging with other airspace users, especially low level, like as pipeline inspection and military flying, and using the likes of BAE CADs to keep aviation informed of activity?
Yeah, I can pick that up. Yes, it is essential that we do. We have a NOTAM for our current area. We are avoiding using any danger areas at present. So our NOTAM is that first sort of flag to any other users of the airspace around us. Because we have a NOTAM, we have regular contact from the elementary flying schools at Cranwell, from the helicopter bases at Wattisham, and other facilities like Benson. So we have a really good sort of conversation with them. We will phone them if we're doing something that's still inside our NOTAM, still inside our permission, but if it's going to be maybe a period of intense activity, we will phone them and let them know what we're up to. So that's our primary way of doing that. And then, of course, our relationship with Cranfield and the fact that we're so close to Cranfield in terms of the ILS, we have to agree with them. They have to agree. We have to agree with them that it's okay for us to operate in such close proximity, and they inform their users of their airfield that they are. And we have used CADs to keep other aviators, military low flying units appraised of our activity. We tend to do that when we're operating, not at this site, when we're operating perhaps in areas where high intensity, low military flying aircraft are operating. This is the key, that the cooperation, informing other areas of what you're doing is important. It shouldn't just be this, there's the manned aviation set, there's the unmanned aviation set. Communication is absolutely key.
Okay. Do you want to add anything to that, Richard?
Yeah, well, I mean, our approach is, I think we were behind Gavin, I think, but we are our approach is we've got an area of airspace that isn't really not particularly busy, and therefore what our initial application is to segregate the airspace. We'll raise a NOTAM when we're flying, but it will be segregated. You shouldn't be coming in. Part of that involves stakeholder engagement to put that through in an airspace change proposal. So we've spoken to everyone. The key people, I think, that in all of this that for us have made it sort of more challenging, I think, is the general aviation community, just because they can fly wherever they want, and we get in their way. So it's a case of us of a kind of working out through letters of agreement some sort of compromise between the two. But our intention is that as we move forward, there will be conspicuity, detect and avoid, and eventually we'll kind of provide an integrated airspace picture that ultimately people will be flying wherever they need to and want to. Okay,
so while you're there, before you go on mute again, there's a question here for you. What is your business model? When you say it's open invitation to use the facility, does that mean no charge for using the airspace? And does the funding come from government, or is there a charging scheme?
There'll be a charging scheme. Exactly how much it is, not where we're still building the business plan just now, so it depends on sponsorship and that kind of stuff as well. But effectively, the operating cost will be met by charging. So the way we look at it, the best example someone's told me is Silverstone. So Silverstone, they make their money from the Grand Prix, but also from like BMW, Mercedes, whoever are coming to show their clients what they're doing. And that's effectively what we're going to do. So you would, if you have an operational safety case for your drone, or you want to come and test some technology, we'll organise all that for you, and you'll pay a kind of day rate for what you're coming, and that day rate will be higher if you come for one day, and it will get cheaper the more you come and the more you use us. So effectively that's what it is. But the capital spend will come out of this economic development programme, so the buildings and all that kind of stuff. But we're not looking to have big fancy buildings. We're looking to be sort of operational focused. So it's you'll pay money. It'll be, the idea is that it's easy to get to, and it will be cheaper than you going off and building your own piece of segregated airspace to test your technology. 500 to £1,000 a day. That's the number we're working on.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Richard. So, question for Blue Bear. In terms of noise reduction, are you looking at materials technology development for the rotors to reduce noise generation?
It's a very good question. Anmol, I assume you're still not. Anmol may be able to give us a précis of one of the projects that we're working on, which is one of the key parts of that is looking at noise reduction. Anmol, are you able to give an overview of that?
Yeah, sure. I could give a very high-level sort of summary. So I think one of the advantages we have with a flight trials facility is being able to fly a lot of platforms of various kinds, whether it be fixed wing and VTOL platforms with various payloads. So the first sort of set of activities is around just characterizing what the noise is from these different vehicles, and looking just beyond the usual noise metrics which relate to EPNL and dBA levels for traditional aircraft, and going beyond that to analyze sort of the psychoacoustic impact of these vehicles when you go from one operation in an area to multiple operations in the same area within a very short time period. So we are exploring the noise characterization at a vehicle level, but also then working our way backwards from that to seeing what the noise sources are on the vehicle, and sort of what the interactions are between the rotors, what are the sort of what are the features on the rotors, and their interaction with the rest of the airframe, to understand how we could design vehicles with better noise characteristics. So we are involved in this. We are doing a lot of activity both within Blue Bear and with academia, and feel free to get in touch with us if you'd like to know more.
I think it's a very key point that needs to be addressed, that I think safety of unmanned air systems and unmanned air mobility, that is something that can be done. We know that we can get high levels of assurance and certification. Noise aspects are from my personal perspective, the key concerns about how widespread use of UAM, particularly in the environment that they're being touted for, in delivery of packages or people in the cities. It is the noise that they create which could be their downfall if that is not addressed properly. Basically.
That's great, thank you. Carissa, so there is a question around autonomy, and I think it's around, essentially, if you can perhaps expand on what the ambitions of the program, Future Flight Challenge program, is around autonomy. The question refers to the fact that obviously in an aircraft, a vessel or an aircraft, the captain bears the ultimate responsibility and not the engineer, in order to, particularly in the event of any incidents and things like that. So I wonder if you could expand on what the ambitions are, and perhaps other people on the panel as well could pick up on the autonomy element as well.
Okay. So whilst we feel confident with human intervention, the truth is autonomy is already incorporated in flight. And when we take into account the operation of advanced air vehicles operating in harsh environments and unpredictable weather, urban weather, we will find that autonomy will be helpful to eliminate pilot error and also help with reliability as well. We've got urban air vehicles operating from a vertiport in an urban environment. We want our customers to be able to book on-demand travel If we've got limitations with, for example, visual flight rules, autonomy will be useful and beneficial and important for safer flight and to enable what the Future Flight Challenge is looking to do in terms of providing on-demand service in these harsh environments. Autonomy will be helpful and provide something that will be more reliable and eliminate that pilot error.
Okay, thank you.
I think if it's possible, I think the differentiation between automation and autonomy is very important. Ultimately, an aircraft has someone in charge of its operation. Automation assists that process. Autonomy is a different matter. It's just important to make sure that that is understood and differentiated as well.
Okay, thank you. And I think, Alan, you want to pick this up. Do you see battery developments for aviation losing out to battery developments for the probably bigger and less problematic automotive market?
I'm not concerned about the developments. I think, although the use case for aviation is different and more challenging than automotive, I think the basic improvements that are being driven largely by the automotive industry will benefit the aviation industry as well. What I am a little bit concerned about is the whole supply-demand balance. Quite recently, some of the big automotive manufacturers have been placing some very large contracts for battery cells, and the aviation industry is going to have to procure and secure its share of the supply. Perhaps by the time we are requiring volume, that will all already been sorted out, but we will be following very closely those developments to make sure that we can procure what we need.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Right, so in the interest of time, I think we're going to have to wrap up. Thank you very much to our panel of speakers today for a very, very interesting session. And it's just to remind you that next month we will, of course, have our next session, which is looking at nature-inspired solutions. So my colleague Emma will deliver on that. She runs a special interest group on nature-inspired solutions. So she does have Opteran confirmed for the moment to present, and is just expecting some very eminent speakers to confirm on that session as well. So please do join us for a session next month. And here it is some contact details for Future Flight. We've got an email there where you can contact us if you need to be introduced to anybody, or you want to know more about the challenge. Any questions at all around Future Flight, please do get in touch. And we do have a LinkedIn group as well that you can join, and the website details, and of course on Twitter. So yeah, so thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.